recording. Good afternoon, everyone. I see there are almost 30 people in the call, and we're going to give it a minute, and then we're going to start.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Massimo, we can see you now.
Okay.
Super. I think we can start. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning from New York, and a very warm welcome to today's European webinar on the Legal Entity Identifier and the Verification of Payee, what lies ahead for treasurers. My name is Alexandros Koliavras. I'm the president of the Hellenic Association of Treasurers, the National Treasury Community of Greece, Cyprus, and the Hellenic Diaspora, and the deputy chair of the European Association of Corporate Treasurers. It is a true honor to be with you all, a community of professionals who understand that modern treasury is no longer just about managing liquidity, it's about protecting trust, enabling secure commerce, and shaping the financial infrastructure of the future. Today's session comes at a pivotal moment. We have moved past the initial implementation wave of the VoP and the expansion of the LEI, and we're entering the stage where impact becomes tangible, where technology, regulation, and treasury operations finally converge. Why is the VoP so important? Because in the world of instant payments, real-time decision-making, and rising fraud, identity has become the new layer of financial security. The verification of payee reduces misdirected payments, prevents impersonation scams, strengthens internal controls, and protects both corporates and individuals. For treasurers, this means fewer operational disruptions, fewer investigations, fewer losses, and of course, a more resilient payment chain. And why does the LEI matter even more today? Because the global economy runs on cross-border relationships. The LEI is the first truly universal identifier for legal entities, a common language that connects banks, regulators, corporates, counterparties, fintechs, and settlement systems around the world. When you combine the VoP with the LEI, you don't just validate an account, you validate who stands behind it. Under a global standard that this is a machine-readable, interoperable, and capable of supporting seamless automation across the full life cycle of payments, onboarding KYC, and of course the counterparty risk. This is the foundation for something bigger, a Europe where trust is embedded by design, not added later as a control. What is our role as treasurers, of course, in this environment? Treasurers have always been guardians of liquidity and risk, but today we're also guardians of data integrity, digital identity, and transaction security. The decisions we make, the systems we adopt, the standards we support directly influence the safety of the European payment ecosystem. And this is why your participation today matters, not only to understand how the VoP and the LEI work, but to help shape how they evolve, how they are adopted, and how they can unlock new efficiencies for corporates across Europe. A final note of appreciation. I want to thank personally our speakers for sharing their expertise and for their contribution to this evolving landscape. They're coming from 4 countries, Germany, Greece, Italy, and Switzerland. Their work, combined with your engagement, is what propels Europe forward towards a safer, smarter, and more interoperable financial infrastructure. With that, I am delighted to officially open today's webinar. Thank you all for being here, and I wish you a truly insightful and forward-looking discussion. And now I will pass the microphone to Konstantinos Strakas, the Treasury Manager at the PPC, the National Electricity Provider of Greece, and Head of Treasury Operations Working Group, our experts groups representing the topic.
Good afternoon, Alexandros. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being with us. I am delighted to serve as your moderator for the webinar. So before we begin, a quick practical note, this webinar is being recorded. And also, if we have time at the end, we will open the floor for questions. So please feel free to submit yours at the chat box. Before we move into the panel discussion, it's my pleasure to introduce today's distinguished panelists who bring deep expertise from across the payments ecosystem. First, we are honored to have Adonia Christoforidou, Head of Audit Services and Public Affairs at Glyph, and of course, a proud HAT member. Hi, Adonia. And next, joining us, Guillermo de la Fuente, co-chair of the Glyph Partners Program, former president of the Swiss Association of Corporate Treasurers, and former board member of EST. Hi, Guillermo. Then we welcome Athanasio Daflo, proud HAT member, and of course, head of transaction banking solutions at Eurobank. Hi, Thano. And finally, last but not least, we are delighted to be joined by Massimo Battistella, Head of Administration and Accounting at FiberCorp, and Vice President of Italian Association of Treasury Corporates, and board member of EST, and of course, the guru of payments within the National Treasury European Community. Thank you all to be here with us. So, to move on the discussion, in order to set the foundation for today's discussion, we turn to Glyph, the organization at the heart of the global LEI system. Let's proceed with a question to Adonia. Adonia, could you briefly explain what Glyph is and why the LEI has become such an essential global identifier for legal entities?
Thank you, Alexandros. Thank you, Konstantinos, for this introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you today. And let me begin with a brief introduction to Glyph and the LEI. Glyph, the global, if we move on to the next page, Glyph, the Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation, is a Swiss not-for-profit foundation established by the Financial Stability Board back in 2014. Glyph's mission is really clear. It ensures the integrity, reliability, and global adoption of the Legal Entity Identifier, the LEI. Glyph essentially provides the trusted infrastructure for organizations worldwide to be uniquely identified. To ensure independence and transparency, Glyph is overseen by the Regulatory Oversight Committee. This group brings together more than 65 financial market regulators, 19 observers, representing more than 50 jurisdictions globally. And in addition to that, Glyph is overseen by a board of 16 independent directors, which enhances robust governance and ensures international representation. Hence, the global LEI system operates as a 3-tier federated system. We have the Regulatory Oversight Committee, which provides guidance, Glyph, which ensures operational quality and integrity across the entire LEI system, and the local operating units, which issue and maintain LEIs. Now, today, we have 39 accredited local operating units and close to 3 million LEIs issued worldwide. Now we take a closer look at what the LEI is and why it is so important globally. The LEI is a 20-character alphanumeric standardized code defined by the ISO standard 17442. It is the only global and universal standard uniquely identifying legal entities. Each LEI is backed by validated reference data, and importantly, the LEI was designed to be a public good, meaning that every user can access the LEI data freely, whether through LEI search tools, APIs, or downloadable files. The LEI simply answers the question who is who and who owns whom by including the key information pertaining to a legal entity, such as the official name of the entity, registered address, country of formation. All the LEI attributes follow the ISO standard, which ensures consistency across different jurisdictions. And because the LEI data is updated at least annually, this ensures that the information remains up to date and allows the user to place trust in the accuracy of the information. So in a nutshell, the LEI enables unambiguous identification of legal entities. It supports trust, transparency, and risk reduction, especially when it comes to cross-border transactions. And lastly, it enables interoperability, connecting seamlessly with national business registers and digital organizational identity. If you would like to have a closer look at what the LEI is, I've included a link to an example at the bottom of the presentation. Now, if we move on to the next page, a simple way to better understand the LEI is to think of it as a global passport number for legal entities. Just as the passport enables a person to be uniquely and clearly identified across borders, in a similar way, the LEI enables organizations to be uniquely, clearly, and consistently identified across different jurisdictions, systems, and business processes. The LEI effectively provides a unique and standardized point of reference for companies, no matter where they operate in the world, and this in turn reduces operational friction and helps mitigate fraud and helps strengthen trust in cross-border transactions.
Adonia, that was very helpful. Of course, I have one more question for you. We are seeing growing regulatory focus on transparency in payments. How does the LEI fit into these developments, especially in the European context?
Thank you, Konstantinos. Indeed, we see a growing focus on transparency in payments, both globally and within the EU. And we also see that the LEI directly feeds into these regulatory developments. At the global level, the Financial Action Task Force has made transparency in payments one of its key priorities. Last June, the organization published the revised Recommendation 16, which is exactly about enhancing transparency in payments. And there, the LEI is referenced as one of the standardized identifiers to identify the originator and beneficiary in cross-border payments when the originator and beneficiary are legal persons. Countries are expected to implement these amendments by the end of 2030. And then we see that this global regulatory momentum, if we move into the next page, we see that this is aligned with recent legislative developments in the EU. We see that the regulators across the EU have taken actions to include the LEI in multiple pieces of legislation. leveraging the value, the use of the LEI for efficient counterparty identification and payments. I would like to highlight two major legislation. The Instant Payments Regulation, and the other one is the EU AML package. Under the Instant Payments Regulation, the payment service providers can allow payers to use the LEI of payees when the payee is a legal person in credit transfers. And here the LEI is referenced as a tool to facilitate payee confirmation and to support the IBAN account name matching check. For the Eurozone payment service providers, their due date to implement this, the verification of payee requirement was the 9th of last October. And now about the EU AML package, we see that the LEI is referenced in the new AML regulation for supporting customer due diligence when onboarding legal entities. And we also see the LEI referenced in the recast transfer of funds regulation for the identification of the originator and beneficiaries in fund transfers where available. And now, having highlighted the key international and EU legislative developments that lay the foundation for the use of the LEI in payments, and before we move on to the next part of the discussion, I would like to briefly highlight the European Association of Corporate Treasurers and GLIFE briefing. If we move on to the next page. This briefing was issued last April, and this, I believe, gives the industry context also of today's session. This briefing highlights how corporate treasurers can leverage the LEI and verification of payee to enhance payment and onboarding processes and workflows to reduce manual intervention and manual checks, and thus to mitigate fraud risk. And after giving also that context, I would like to hand over back to you, Konstantinos, to continue the discussion.
Thank you very much, Adonia, for putting the picture in the frame. It was so clear for us. So before we move into the panel discussion, we would like a quick sense of where our audience stands today. If you take a look, sorry.
Konstantine, I think we cannot hear you. Eh? You're on mute. Oh, sorry. I think until Konstantinos fixed the microphone issue, you can scan the QR code, join the slido.com, and use the code that is on the screen to vote. I think we're going to leave the poll open for yeah, a minute or two. Can still not hear you.
I'm okay now.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. I see. Okay. I see that. Thank you for your responses. I see that it's clear that the majority are not using the LEI in payments on onboarding processes. Does anyone on the panel want to add a comment to these results of the audience? Thanos or Guillermo, do you want to say something? Or Massimo?
Well, what I want to comment is it's very difficult not to find somebody using or using widely this instrument if we have 3 million, actual current LEI operating in the world, while, for example, just in Italy, we have 4 million and a half of enterprises. So it's something that is at the starting point with a huge possibilities, but still, in the path, it's a very, very young baby. So we have to, it's a matter of, let's say, diffusion, which is really, really relevant in order to achieve the results we want to achieve that we will discuss then in the webinar.
Okay, thank you, Massimo. Guillermo, do you want to say something?
Yes, I agree with Massimo. It's true that for the time being, the LEI is not part of our database for vendors. First of all, because not all our vendors have an LEI, and also because we didn't have the time to update, or we didn't consider to update in our database already the LEI numbers. And on the other hand, we have to make sure that if we have this LEI in our database, we need to make sure that the TMS and the banks are accepting and treating this LEI in the payment chain. So, as Massimo said, it's a young baby who is getting down in business, and we need a lot of work to be done to implement it. The new regulation VoP is also a push for this kind of solutions, but still a lot of work to be done. And even though we believe this is a good solution, we still need to fight for more adoption and more traction.
Thank you, Guillermo. Thano, I don't know if you want to say something or.
Well, it's clearly bad news for the VoP, the poll results, I mean. I hope it's only, the poll to the webinar, and the numbers are in reality larger. And I suppose that they will be larger in the coming months and
this
years.
Is the target, I think.
Yeah, because we will discuss later about VoP.
Yes,
but
of course.
I think that VoP is good initiative, but requires structured data, because there are systems involved. So the need for structured data is mandatory.
Okay.
Of course.
We will see it then in the webinar. All right. Let's continue with the broader regulatory landscape. Transparency in payments is a global challenge, and LEI adoption is gaining strong policy momentum. So, Guillermo, FATF and G20 have emphasized traceability and transparency in payments. How do you see the LEI strengthening these principles globally?
Hello, good afternoon. If I can have my four slides to support my argumentation, that would be great. Yes, thank you very much, Constantine. So this is the matter. This is the matter of the problem. Criminal financial crime is becoming a big problem. A vast number, something between $2 and $3 trillion of losses. So that means that's creating a lot of concern to the governmental authorities, to the regulators as well. Financial crimes are damaging economies, distorting economy data, and are reducing tax revenues, which is also very important nowadays. They also fuel corruption, destabilize governments, and create unfair competition. for lawful business. So this is, as I say, in some countries it's becoming a national threat. So that means that some institutions are taking this situation very seriously. And one of the organizations that we were mentioned here was the FAFTA. The FAFTA is the Financial Action Task Force. And even though it sounds maybe unfamiliar to you, that's going to become a key player in the world regulation and in the world fight against finance crime. FATF is an intergovernmental organization which is represented by ministers from 40 different countries. Obviously, the most important countries, or some of them, some other countries are maybe not that important, but they are also members of the organization. And the most important thing is this organization is endorsed by 170 countries. As you can imagine, international organizations cannot abide on international rules. So that means that every piece of recommendation, any advice coming from the FATF has to be endorsed by the other countries in the world. And now it's the case for 170 countries. And the most important thing is that this organization is now issuing what we all know as Antonio already mentioned, the recommendations. This organization is issuing recommendations, and one of the main recommendation, which a high impact on Treasury, is the recommendation 16. Recommendation 16 is what was called in the 90s the travel rule, and there was a rule that was recommended to fight the drug problems in the States at that period of time. This recommendation evolves in 2000 when the Twin Towers attack, and it was included in the recommendation for the first time. It was included as the recommendation 16 as a way to make sure that the payments that were made, not only cross-border payments, but also domestic payments, were monitored by the banks, because at that point in time, the payments were done without any other factor than the bank account number. In 2019, this recommendation again was revised, including the cryptos. And now, as Antonia said, in 2025, there was a new recommendation, a new revision of the recommendation to update and to make sure that the recommendation it was taking into consideration the latest developments in the financial world. And basically, the three reasons that foster the review of this recommendation was to make sure that the law enforcement had the support to get the data they need to assist in detecting and investigating. Also, the financial is can you go back? Sorry. the financial intelligence units also they can do their job. Maybe most of you are not familiar with financial intelligence units, but this is something new, which is almost now in every country, and these financial intelligence units are devoted to investigate the funds, the payments, and the movements of different funds. So this is something that requires a lot of data. As banks and financial institutions, they also requires data, structured data, of course, and that's the reason the FAFTA came with this recommendation of using factors like, for instance, the LEI, which is a machine readable factor that really helps to treat data in a large scale and also to validate that kind of data for future investigations. Next slides will tell you what the recommendation 16, the new recommendation 16, the changes in the recommendation 16, and the impact for payments. Basically now is there is a threshold of €1,000, $1,000 for cross-border payments. That means that again, I think it's very important. This is a recommendation. This is a regulation. Maybe it become a part of the regulation in some regions soon. I hope so. But for the time being, it's just a recommendation that has to be implemented by 2030. That's otherwise you will be if the country doesn't regulate this recommendation. Probably they will fall into what we call the grey list, the famous grey list, where the countries don't want to get listed, obviously. And in this recommendation, in the new recommendation 16, basically the FATF is asking to include LEI. LEI, because as we already understood from previous speaker, is an ambiguous number, and that will avoid any kind of close match or any ambiguous identification with another entity. So using LEI, of course, will help not only the financial intelligence units, the banks, and the law enforcement, but also the companies, because the corporates, because they will have less rejections on payments and also rejections in the screenings. The last point I want to mention is in the next slide is not only to make data easy to read using factors like the LEI, but it's also one lesson learned is that all the data has to be verified and matched in somehow, because it's worthless to use data which is not correct or which is fake. Obviously, a criminal will never identify himself with his name or with his address or anything that can identify him. He will always use a fake address, a fake name. And that's the reason all the information now, according to recommendation 16, has to be verified and monitored. So as you see here, for each transaction, the beneficiary financial institution should check that the beneficiary name and account number in the payment message aligned with the record. This is basically what VoP is, and this is basically the confirmation of the UK, and this is what the European Treasury Association has been pushing and advocating for. The beneficiary financial institution should use a risk-based approach to conduct ongoing monitoring. So this is part of here the regulator wants to make sure that the financial institution is taking ownership of the problem and taking responsibilities for tackling any type of fraud coming. And finally, this is what we were talking about: the confirmation of payee, pre-validation. This is another reminder that verification of payee, confirmation of payee is important to fight fraud. And basically what the FATF is saying is all those countries that don't have the confirmation of payee, the validation, verification of payee, they have to do it, and that will help to fight financial crime. So I think this is all from my side. I have one slide that is the last one, which I think it's also the recommendation from the EPC, the European Payments Group, and here, you know, they recommend to use the LEI as well, because that will avoid any close matching, any misdirection of payment, and any rejection, and any problem like Thanos said before that. Yeah, some corporates may be reluctant to use it because they are scared to have a mess with the payment. So this is something which is being recognized by the EPC, and this is something we now is the next step, is to make sure that this the financial institutions, the TMS provider, they provide the solutions for us to use the LEI number. And the floor is back to you, Konstantinos.
The helpful information and your insights. So let's continue the discussion from the bank's perspective. So Thano, is your turn. From a banking standpoint, implementing the LEI and verification of payee isn't only about compliance. It's about trust, customer experience, and fraud prevention. So Eurobank, Thano, is a leader in payments modernization. How does the LEI fit within your roadmap for the instant payments regulation?
Thank you. And thank you, Kostas. And I would like also to congratulate you, Alexandros, and the Hellenic Association of Treasurers for this initiative.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because I think it's one of the hottest topics in payments right now, especially the VoP. VoP is the holy grail of payments. In my experience, it is under discussion, and there are many initiatives trying to implement VoP for over 10 years now. And finally, it is here. Of course, it is another EU initiative that it is here, but in the wrong way. We hope to fix the problems in the future. But reality is that it is a long-awaited initiative, especially for companies to enhance security and tackle fraud. It is a part of the, not directly a part, but it's indirectly a part of the instant payment regulation, because VoP came because of the instant payments and the expectancy that fraud will rise because of the instant payments in EU. So this is good that the authorities had foresaw that fact, and they went on with VoP. But there are two inherent problems in the verification of payee as it is designed right now. First, that the majority of VoP checks is they are based on name matching. So these two are contradictory. So there is an algorithm that handles a VoP request, but name matching is contradictory to having an algorithm. The second problem is that it is available on mass payments, on file payments, which is over 80% of all payments in EU. The majority of payments in EU are through file payments. Okay, but there is the opt-out, which means that because of the name matching problem, most companies, most businesses do not use the VoP. So even if we're talking right now about this evolution in payments, we can say in confidence that it is not used because the majority of file payments right now are executed without the VoP in place. How do we tackle this problem? This problem is tackled by using identifiers instead of name matching. So this is in the right direction. This is basically what we expect to see in the future. So we're going to see, I guess, more files with identifiers like registration number or LEI or tax ID. So in order to achieve a matching percentage of more than 85, 90%. Because right now, I don't have the numbers in place right me, but my estimate is that we are under 50% in VoP matching, which causes problem, of course, especially in file payments. So we cannot
Yes.
go on with name matching. This is, to me, a major problem. You cannot have unattended payments through files transformed into attended payments because of the many no match or close match results of the VoP algorithm. So it is a must that companies will shift to using VoP, but using it in a way that the file uses identifiers for that. Now, what we have done as a bank, and I will talk about later on the bank's role on this also. What we have done as a bank is that, first of all, we have incorporated LEI in our matching tool. So anyone who sends money or receives money, they can use LEI as identifier for payments. And we're going very soon, by the end of this month, to have it also available in our unattended channels like FTP, like SFTP channels. So this is going to be available. We have also built, we call it a pre-val tool. So you don't have to go to the payments part. You can use the pre-val tool in order to get the results of the VoP. And in the pre-val tool also, you can use identifiers like LEI or registration number. So you can check your suppliers before executing the payments. And we have tried to make it as flexible as we can because you don't need, as a user, you don't need to upload the payments file there. You can upload the custom file that has the elements of these suppliers and the identifiers in order for the algorithm to return back to you the result. So these are basically the steps forward. Now, in a nutshell, it is a good initiative. It needs some steps ahead in order for problems to be fixed and have a broader adoption of this service. My estimate is that we are going to see VoP at global level very soon. So it's not going to be only EU. My estimate is that in 2026, it's going to be available also in global level. And that makes the need for structured identifiers more crucial. Because if we go at global level and still rely on name matching algorithms, I guess it will be
Huge problem.
a big fail.
Yes. So Thano, can you share an example of how LEI and VoP together improve customer due diligence and reduce fraud risk?
Well, it's yes. I'm going to talk with my previous hat because many years ago, long time ago, I was also a developer and programmer. So we used to develop programs back then on algorithms, and you cannot rely on name matching algorithms in order to produce a tangible result. If we tweak the algorithm, then we are losing the essence of the anti-fraud essence of the algorithm. Because if the algorithm, for example, in name matching has a success as we speak right now of 42%, let's say, and my estimate is around there, under 50%. Even if we tweak this algorithm to produce a better percentage rate as a result, then there is always, we move the threshold of the anti-fraud stability of the algorithm. So you cannot rely on tweaking algorithms in name matching in order to produce a useful result for payments. The only way to produce a match, no match result is by using identifiers, structured data. So LEI is a perfect example of structured data, especially for, for businesses. Other elements are also in place. Like I said, the tax ID, for example, it would be, but tax ID has also the problem that it is different in areas across Europe.
It's
and in
not
areas,
globally.
It's not a global.
unique.
It's not a
Yes.
global identifier. So to me, it's mandatory that we use identifiers in order to have a result that we can rely on, and by also not losing the automation part of file and API payments, and also the machine-to-machine payments benefit, for efficiency and straight-through processing. So to me, this is the way forward. Otherwise, it cannot work, basically. Otherwise, most of the companies will still remain on the opt-out, side of VoP, and it's not good because they're not using a very good facility which tackles fraud issues and security issues.
Okay, Hanno, and I have one more question for you. What do you think? What are the main challenges banks face when leaking LEI data with existing KYC and payments infrastructure?
Well, first of all is the performance and capacity issues. Okay, we always say that in the digital era, capacity is not a problem, but capacity is not unlimited on the system. So we always have to invest in capacity because the calls. Let's not forget that the VoP is a real-time response of the banks. It's not like it's not historical data. Okay, it's a real-time query and real-time response. So first, capacity is needed in order to facilitate so many calls on the databases of the banks. The second important thing is the adoption of LEI, and not only the adoption, but also the adoption of the ecosystem. Because even if companies start to adopt LEI, then the ERPs, for example, of the customers should change in order to support LEI in the supplier cards. Because as you know, many ERP providers produce the files automatically for paying the suppliers. So it's not something that you go one by one in your payments file to complete, to fill in. So, I mean, there has to be a coordinated approach in adopting identifiers like LEI, and also the ecosystem that supports the companies in producing the payments. As Kostas, now most payments shift from the e-banking experience to alternative channels. One of the alternative channels is ERPs and TMS systems through APIs. So all this ecosystem has to include LEI support in order for the treasurers to have to automate the process of producing the file or producing the API calls, sending them to the bank, and then the bank can take care of the rest of the process and respond in a structured way also back to the system of the company. So I think that these basically are the challenges.
Big corporates, I think, use only tend to use only alternative payments methods.
Exactly. That's why the shift from digital channels, from not digital, let's say from e-banking, the traditional e-banking. That's why the shift is going to be fast because big corporates already use the alternative channels to do that.
Thank you, Hanno. We appreciate your thoughts, and let's turn the discussion to the corporate treasurer's perspective, the ultimate end user of trust in payments. So, Massimo, As a corporate treasurer, what tangible benefits do you see in embedding LEI and VoP in daily operations?
Well, let's start saying that in Italy, we were in this position 25 years ago when we were asking to the Italian Banking Association to include the fiscal code in payments in order to check, to allow checking of the beneficiary with the fiscal code at the time existing. And when SEPA and PSD were arriving in the first draft we had, when we saw that the payment were done only on the base of the IBAN, as EACT, we really try to let central bank and commission understand of the risk that the payment done on the IBAN only basis provided. No, so we have we are clearly as treasurer we need to use codes, and we are identified by codes in all our transactions. We are identified by codes with our fiscal national authorities. We are identified by codes with the social security authorities. We are identified by codes by banks. So the capability to have one single global code available at the national, European, and global level is clearly something that we really need. No, it's clear that it's a topic that requires a lot of time to have that ecosystem. No, that Athanasio said should be put in place, because we would like to have, for example, that also our fiscal national authorities should use the LEI to identify us. No, together with other codes they have. No, because if you have a global code, it's of real interest. In payments, it's essential. The identification of counterparties is essential. Okay, and we fully agree the topic that the VoP as was built essentially for consumers. Okay, so people that have to insert their data in their devices nowadays or in the home banking. Okay, and checking the name of the counterparty in order to be sure that they are paying the right one. When you go to payments that all corporates, not only the real big ones, but also the others that have system for managing their treasury or for managing their accountant. Okay, so they have suppliers and they supply using file. Also here, depending on the countries, you can have different solutions. For example, all the issues we had regarding the topic of bulk file have been resolved, for example, in Italy quite easily, because for all those using banking for sending the file to the bank and to all the banks in the Italian corporate banking solution, the bank that receives the request can do the checking. Okay, so you can do it. But for those that use FTP or different solution, like me, I was forced to opt out. And because there was no possibility to manage the chaos or the partial match. So then we have worked on this as the ACT in order to have, and we have recently had a final reply from the Commission, an interpretation that allows banks to accept a preliminary, let's say, indication that even if there is a close match or a no match, they can provide the payment. Okay, they can execute the payment anyway. We have asked EPC to implement KO or partial match codes in the normal payment initiation format of the files, in order to be able to send the file normally, to agree with the bank, as the Commission allows us now to do, that they can execute the OK, and for the KO and the partial match, if there are there, okay, they can send us back through the normal reply of a payment initiation, in order to do what? To, let's say, update our database of typically suppliers, but not only. There could be third party, there could be customer to which we should refund money, even employees if you want. Okay, in order to have what is really important, to have all those information always present in our files. And this makes also me to reason on what also here Athanasio said. We have to implement our systems So we have to ask to our provider to have the LEI as we have the VAT code or we have the fiscal code as code, okay, in the systems. We have to implement digital solution for checking the LEIs that somebody provides to us electronically, because not only that we have to receive, okay, and to use it, but we have to be sure that that LEI is correct and pertains to the entity we want to pay. And this is normally done not when we do the payment, but once we insert the master data in our systems. So there is really a need, as was already said, of an ecosystem, okay, where those information are available to everybody, are available in the banks for doing the check, are available in the companies for checking the counterparties, okay. And this is, in my opinion, essential in order to reap the benefits, no? Which means to increase security in payments, which is important, to increase it without having the cost of verification of counterparty that we have now. So when I have a new supplier coming from a country, I have to check if the data they send us are correct, okay? And this is done normally not through electronic channels, but is done by people, by humans that have to do checks, that have to receive double checking information for the corporate, okay, for the supplier and so. And this should be, let's say, substituted by digital solution based on LEI if the supply is a global supplier, is not maybe a national one, where we have other means to check the identity of the counterparty. So it's clear that all this activity have a cost, or if you don't do that, okay, expose you to a risk. And this is how the use of global codes could help a lot, no? Also because in the years the capability of fraudsters has increased. I remember when SEPA was launched, my dear Gianfranco Tabasso, which was the one that built, okay, this the position of VACT on SEPA, was subject to a fraud. No, he sent an invoice to a company in Spain. Somebody intercepted the mail. At the time, they were already able to change the IBAN on the invoice attached to the mail. They sent the invoice. They sent the mail again. Nobody checked that, and that it was not the proper one. And the payment went in Lithuania or something like that in the Nordics, and it was unable to recover it. So now we have instead criminal organizations that do this, that have a huge amount of money, okay, in order to implement their capability to do that. And so the use of the let's say codes for identifying counterparties in payments and generally speaking relation is really essential, also for anti-money laundering solution, also for sanction, for example, okay, which is another area where using code instead of strings could help. I think that we have few time because the time is going, so I leave the further time to Antonio, I think.
Okay, you highlight awareness, I think, Massimo. Do you think that the corporates are sufficiently aware of the LEI's potential?
No, so absolutely no. Absolutely
Okay.
no. Absolutely no, because I mean, this is it's a new topic. In order to move a corporate to invest money, because I mean, inserting a file in a system has a cost anyway, you know, unless it's done directly by the SAPs or the oracles of the case. In other cases, is a cost to modify how you let's say create the file for the bank as a cost. So the corporates should have either an obligation, which is my experience, either an obligation like SEPA, okay, everybody was forced, or an incentive to do this, which is, generally speaking, saving some money, compared to the money you have to invest in doing things, or a regulation, something like that.
So you think that this would accelerate the
Yes.
corporates to adopt?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Massimo. You were very helpful. And to close our panel, Adonia, what practical steps can treasurers take to help drive broader adoption of the LEI across their organizations?
Thanks, Konstantinos, and I would also like to thank all the speakers for sharing all these very useful insights on this topic. And yeah, last but not least, I would like to just emphasize once more how the corporate treasurers community can help and can drive further the LEI adoption and the adoption of verification of payee standardized solutions that can effectively reduce fraud and support due diligence and enable seamless straight-through processing. So we strongly encourage you to speak with your ERP and TMS providers. The LEI might be already integrated into some systems, but integrating the LEI into the master data of an entity can significantly enhance onboarding. Engage your banking partners and your payment service providers. Ask how they already use the LEI data in their processes and their workflows. For example, if they're using the data already in the account, IBAN account name matching check, or verification of payee, and see how you can benefit from that. And third, please, you can ensure that try to ensure that the LEI is consistently used across all the value chain by raising awareness within your teams, within your association, within the overall treasurer community. The more consistently the LEI is used, the more benefit it will bring for everyone in terms of fraud reduction. And the last practical step, it's a small practical step, but still it can generate big results for everyone. So the last step you can take today, immediately after this webinar, is the following. We kindly invite you to complete this survey on the LEI and the verification of payee. Given that we are now at the post-implementation phase of the verification of payee requirement under the Instant Payments Regulation, we would like to see how currently treasurers use the LEI, what the pain points are, and if there is the need for additional support and guidance. So we really appreciate your insights, and we strongly encourage you to scan the QR code on the right-hand side of the screen and just take 3 minutes of your time and share your valuable feedback with us. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to complete the survey, and thank you, everyone, also for taking maybe in the future further steps to implement, to drive adoption of the LEI and VoP solutions.
Thank you, Adonia. I would like to conclude with some key takeaways from today's discussion. The LEI and the verification of payee are becoming foundational elements of digital trust. Their success depends on close cooperation between regulators, banks, and corporates. And finally, that this journey is not only about compliance, it's about enabling efficiency, transparency, and safer payments for everyone. I would like to thank all the panelists, all the speakers, Adonia, Guillermo, Thano, Massimo. Thank you very much for your thoughts, for your information, for your experience that you have. And a warm thank you to all of you for joining us in the Pan-European Dialogue on Identity and Trust in Payments. The HAT and ESCT communities remain committed to supporting this transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Kostas. Thank you all
Bye.
for being here.
Thank
It's a
you.
great pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice evening.
Have a nice evening.